Hello and welcome to our version of Crash Course for our history class.
Our topic is China in the 19th century.
First off, the main event of the 19th century was the fall of the Qing dynasty.
Well, at least the beginning of it. The Qing dynasty was a family who ruled China for about 270 years. You could say they were the Tudors of China.
In the 1800s, China was a conservative empire with lots of problems: overpopulation, famines, and pressures from the Western world.
The pressures came mainly from Britain, who wanted better commerce opportunities with China.
China dominated the trade commerce. They bought almost nothing to the Western countries compared to what the Western countries bought from China.
So the British found a solution to this. They exported tons of an addictive drug called opium that they produced in their colony, India.
The Emperor of China was not happy. I mean, who would be happy if Britain came and made your people addicted to opium?
This caused the start of the Opium Wars in 1839. The first was won by Britain and it was sealed by the Treaty of Nanjing. This treaty was the first of the unequal treaties which were forced into China. The treaty opened up 5 ports for trade, demanded the Chinese to pay $6 million, and handed over the island of Hong Kong to England.
The Second Opium War against France and England resulted in the victory of the French and British with the Treaty of Nanjing. It legalizes the trade of opium and opened up new ports for trade. The spheres of influence were accepted and many Western powers took advantage of it.
The Opium Wars left the Chinese government humiliated and weak. Many uprisings seek to overthrow the King Emperor.
The spheres of influence consisted in a place inside China where foreigners were subject to their homeland's laws and not China's.
This caused friction between the foreigners and the Chinese. It was the first influence of democratic and capitalist ideas that China received.
Capitalist ideas came mainly from the British, who were the most industrialized country at the time. However, democratic ideas came from the French, who had their Second Republic at its highest.
Some rebel groups wanted the government to adapt the new democratic ideas with the traditional Confucian teachings. This was done with the goal to modernize China without losing its essence.
The uprisings became more violent. For example, the Taiping Rebellion and the Boxer Rebellion left behind about 6 million deaths.
The power of the Chinese government was fragile since it had to fight off two fronts, the first against the foreigners and the second against its own people.
The more the century advanced, the more land China lost. It ceded Taiwan to Japan, Burma to England, Vietnam to France, and Korea became fully independent.
Then, the 100 Days of Reform came in 1898. The Guangxu Emperor, at the late 19th century, decided to make some changes and create educational, political, and administrative reforms. The reforms did not last, as the conservatives inside the court did not agree with them. They were revoked soon after they were released.
So the reforms were based on the concept of self-strengthening, meaning they merged Western and Confucian ideas. At the end of the century, China's government was debilitated and incompetent, leading to new uprisings and rebellions within the country and the eventual fall of the Qing dynasty in the early 20th century.
If we took all of the events and we put them on a timeline, it would look like this. First, we have the start of the First Opium War in March 18, 1839. Second, 3 years later, we have the end of this war against the British in August 29, 1842. It is important to notice that the Treaty of Nanjing was signed the same year. Then we will have the Taiping Rebellion in December 27, 1850. After that, we have the start of the Second Opium War in October 8, 1856. 4 years later, the French and British won this war in October 18th. The Treaty of Nanjing was ratified in this year as well, 1860. Almost at the end of the century, the Sino-Japanese War started in August 1st, 1894. The Japanese wanted the Korean peninsula that China had control over. The Japanese triumphed and took over the peninsula in April 17, 1895. And lastly, in November 2nd, 1899, the Boxer Rebellion rose. It was against the spread of Western imperialism and of the Christianity among China. All of these events led to the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1912 and the establishment of a republican China.